April 15th, 1976, 2:30 in the afternoon. That's when Dr. Henderson looked me straight in the eye and said, "Frank, if you don't change something dramatic in the next 6 months, you'll be lucky to see 70. I was 45 years old, overweight, chain smoker, 3 heart attacks already behind me. My blood pressure was so high, the nurse had to check it twice because she didn't believe the numbers. I remember the taste of that moment, metallic, like I'd been sucking on pennies. The fluorescent lights in that cramped office at the VA hospital hummed above my head, and all I could think about was my father. He died at 68, massive coronary, while mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning. Found him face down next to his Craftsman mower, grass clippings still stuck to his work boots. Dr. Henderson wasn't done. "You've got maybe 25 years left if you're lucky. But the way you're going, I'd bet money you don't make it past 70. Hell, I'd bet money you don't make it past 60. I walked out of that office and sat in my '74 Ford pickup for 20 minutes. Just sat there in the parking lot, watching people come and go. Young mothers with strollers, old men with canes, everyone moving with purpose, while I felt like I was drowning in my own body. The drive home to my little house on Maple Street was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Every red light felt like a countdown timer. Every breath felt borrowed. I pulled into my driveway and saw my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, watering her roses. She was 82 then, sharp as a tack, moving around her garden like she was 50. I wondered what she knew that I didn't. That night I called my brother Tommy in Phoenix, told him what the doctor said. There was this long silence on the line, and then he said, "Frank, you remember what Mom used to say about Uncle Pete? Uncle Pete was our great-uncle, lived to be 97, still chopping firewood at 90. She always said Pete had one rule. He never ate anything that didn't grow from the ground or walk on 4 legs. I hung up the phone and opened my refrigerator. TV dinners, frozen pizzas, a 6-pack of Budweiser, bologna that had been there so long it was turning colors I didn't recognize. The freezer was stuffed with ice cream and frozen burgers. My cabinets, chips, cookies, canned soup loaded with sodium. This was my fuel. This was what I was feeding a body that was already failing me. The next morning, I drove to Miller's Farm Market, just outside town. I'd driven past it 1,000 times, but never stopped. Old Miller himself was behind the counter, must have been 75, with hands like leather and eyes that still sparkled. I bought apples, red ones, the kind that make that perfect crunch when you bite into them. Some carrots with the dirt still on them. A head of lettuce so green it almost hurt to look at. I went home and threw everything else away. Everything. The freezer, the cabinets, the refrigerator, all of it went into garbage bags and straight to the curb. My neighbors probably thought I'd lost my mind. Frank Morrison, the guy who lived on Marlboro Reds and Hungry Man dinners, suddenly throwing away his entire food supply. That first week was hell, pure hell. My body was screaming for the sugar, the salt, the nicotine. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with my hands shaking, craving a cigarette so bad I thought I might die from wanting it. But every time I felt like giving up, I'd remember Dr. Henderson's words, "Lucky to see 70. I started walking, just to the corner mailbox at first, then around the block, then 2 blocks. The smell of fresh air in my lungs instead of smoke felt foreign, like I was breathing in a different world. Mrs. Patterson would wave from her garden. "Keep it up, Frank," she'd call out. "You're looking better already." By month 3, something shifted. I could taste things I hadn't tasted in years. That first apple, God, it was like eating sunshine. The sweetness wasn't artificial. It didn't come from a factory or a laboratory. It came from soil and rain and time. Real food, grown the way food was supposed to be grown. I started shopping differently, reading labels. If I couldn't pronounce an ingredient, it didn't come home with me. If it had more than 5 ingredients, it stayed on the shelf. I bought chicken from a local farm where I could see the birds walking around in actual grass. Vegetables from that same farm market where old Miller would tell me stories about his grandfather's farming methods from the 1920s. The weight started falling off, not fast, but steady, like my body was finally remembering what it was supposed to feel like. My blood pressure dropped. The chest pains that had become part of my daily routine just disappeared. Dr. Henderson couldn't believe my 6-month follow-up results. He made me take the tests twice. But here's the thing nobody tells you about changing your life at 45. People think you're crazy. My buddies at the Elks Lodge couldn't understand why I wasn't drinking beer anymore. My sister kept bringing over casseroles loaded with cheese and cream, saying I was too skinny now. "Frank, you're going to waste away to nothing." But I wasn't wasting away. I was finding myself. Most people walk away when stories get this personal. The fact that you're still listening tells me you understand what it's like to face your own mortality and decide to fight back. Year 1 became year 2. Year 2 became 5. At 50, I was in better shape than I'd been at 30. At 55, I was hiking trails I couldn't have walked at 25. I started growing my own vegetables in the backyard. Tomatoes so red they looked like jewels. Lettuce that I'd pick in the morning and eat for lunch. There's something about eating food you grew yourself with your own hands that changes you on a cellular level. I met Sarah when I was 52. She was shopping at the same farm market, picking through the sweet corn with the kind of care that told me she understood what real food meant. We got to talking. She'd made a similar change in her 40s after her own health scare. We understood each other in a way that went beyond words. We married 2 years later. Small ceremony in her backyard, surrounded by the vegetable garden we'd planted together. The wedding cake was made from scratch by her sister. Real butter, real eggs, real vanilla. It tasted like celebration should taste, like life should taste. Sarah and I spent 35 years together before she passed. 35 years I wouldn't have had if I'd kept living the way I was living at 45. We traveled, we gardened, we cooked meals together every single night. We watched the seasons change from our kitchen window while we shared simple dinners that tasted like love. When I turned 70, the age Dr. Henderson said I'd be lucky to reach, Sarah and I celebrated by hiking 5 miles through the Appalachian Trail. When I turned 80, we planted a new apple tree in the front yard. When I turned 90, I was still climbing ladders to pick fruit from trees we'd planted decades before. Sarah used to say that changing what we eat changes who we are. She was right. The man who walked out of Dr. Henderson's office at 45, scared and sick and convinced he was running out of time, that man died somewhere around year 2 of eating real food. The man who replaced him was stronger, clearer, more alive in every way that mattered. Now I'm 93. I still start every morning with an apple from my own tree. I still shop at Miller's grandson's farm market. The grandson took over when old Miller passed at 89. I still read every label, still choose food that grew from the ground over anything that came from a factory. Last month, I went for my annual checkup with Dr. Henderson's replacement, a young doctor who wasn't even born when I got my death sentence at 45. She looked at my chart, looked at me, looked at the chart again. "Mr. Morrison," she said, "your blood work looks better than most 50-year-olds I see. What's your secret?" I told her the same thing I'm telling you. At 45, I stopped eating poison and started eating food. Real food. The kind our great-grandparents ate before everything came wrapped in plastic and loaded with chemicals we can't pronounce. I stopped feeding my body like it was a garbage disposal and started treating it like the miracle it is. There are more stories I need to get off my chest about those years of change, about the people who helped me and the ones who tried to stop me. If you want to hear them, hit subscribe. I'll be here, probably for another decade or 2 if my current trajectory holds. The truth is, I didn't just add years to my life. I added life to my years. Every morning when I wake up in this same kitchen, surrounded by fresh fruit on this same wooden table, I remember that scared 45-year-old man who thought his story was almost over. He had no idea it was just beginning. Dr. Henderson was wrong about one thing. I didn't just make it past 70. I didn't just make it past 80 or 90. At 93, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. And if you're sitting there right now, at whatever age you are, thinking it's too late to change your story, let me tell you something. It's never too late. The best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best day is today. Your body is the only home you'll ever truly own. Stop filling it with poison. Start filling it with life. One apple at a time. One choice at a time. One day at a time. The man or woman you could become is waiting on the other side of that first real meal. That's my story. That's my one thing. At 45, I stopped dying slowly and started living fully. 48 years later, I'm still here to tell you about it.